Paladins has just dropped its open beta 34 called Troublemaker, and Ying is back, baby! The master of illusions and conjurer of cheap tricks. Ying was available in the alpha and closed beta, but what we have now is quite a lot different to what Ying was before. So in this video I'm going to go over the new shiny Ying and some tips and tricks to utilize her in her current form. In the past, Ying was a massive damage dealer, able to put down illusions of herself that were like little mini turrets that fired at enemies. That's not the case anymore, and Ying has shifted from a damage dealer to a support hero. Basically, the illusions can only heal your allies now, or yourself, and will do damage only if you use the right-click ability, which is called Shatter, where your illusions start chasing after the closest enemy and explode after 2.5 seconds travelled. Otherwise they'll be doing 400 HP every second, healing your allies, and each illusion lasts 12 seconds, but that can be buffed with choosing the illusion length time card. But either way, it's a lot of potential healing, and if I say so, probably the best healer at the moment, if not maybe doing a bit too much healing. She also has an escape by teleporting between the shadows. You can either look at one directly or normally teleport without looking at any, and it'll teleport you to the furthest one away. And this is great when you're being chased by a shotgun wielder or any close ranged hero that will get right up in your face and you can zip out of there. Her ultimate spawns crystals on every ally, and Ying can heal 200 damage every second for 5 seconds, so a total of 1000 damage she can heal occasionally in the map. Something really interesting about Ying and why I like the character design a lot is that the mirror, if you look carefully, is actually a live feed of what's going on in the game, so it renders what's in front of you like a sniper scope. And normally in games they use a sniper scope which has just some sort of like prefab or some little small area that's not actually relevant to the gameplay going on in the game, but here you can actually have a zoomed view of what you're aiming at. It's not necessarily useful, I don't think you could really use it as a sniper rifle or for aiming really, but it's just a nice little touch. Also her weapon's slightly different, the mirror fires off a laser, which is pretty much a beam, but in bursts, and you get extra damage if all of that beam hits the enemy target. That can be quite hard to get used to, but it's actually fairly forgiving because once you start firing, you can move up towards the head from the body, and there's no real recoil or anything like that, so it's pinpoint accurate. The illusions have slightly changed as well in appearance. Now they are some sort of ethereal, ghostly colour, blue when you're an ally or red when you're fighting somebody else with illusions. And before it used to be that you'd just be a copy of Ying, so sometimes you mistake them for the enemy. But unless they're running towards you, this isn't the case, and I think this is a good nerf. It does make her a little less overpowered. It doesn't really seem like a character design has changed at all from the alpha, apart from the new spirit version of you when you have the copy. Once the illusions explode on your enemies, they'll puff out into cherry blossom, and it's a bit misleading for how damaging they can be, especially if you have more than one illusion charging at somebody. So some tips for Ying as she stands now. One of the things that I think will always be the case is to put the illusion behind cover that blocks from the side of your enemies, so basically the flow of the map is going one way, so if you're a payload, you want the illusion to be covered on the side that the enemy are coming from, but be able to see down below into a creek or around a corner to where your allies are going to be, so that the enemies can't destroy your illusion and it'll be able to heal for as long as possible before being taken out. The teleport ability is extremely useful, and if you do find yourself in a bit of a pickle, I'd use it straight away, and especially if you have the card that spawns an illusion in the spot where one had already died, it's a very useful ability. And again, your live view on your mirror isn't really that useful, but I wouldn't pay too much attention to what's going on in it. And I'd use the cursor on the screen to aim with. Always keep your illusions up, so don't forget to spam the Q key as much as possible. Don't forget to spam the Q key as much as possible, and put them up when they get taken down. The healing potential is massive, and especially on Payload, where the objective is moving all the time, you'll need to keep putting these illusions up, and it can really help with the push for your team. And always remember, if you see an enemy one, to take it out as fast as possible, because that could be the only thing keeping the enemies up, and the reason why they win and you lose. Also, like I've said before, or if you get all 5 ticks on the enemy, you get some extra damage from the beam. I'd say that it's always quite good to go from the body and move up to the head, and often you'll be able to hit better, get the headshot damage and the bonus damage, whereas maybe if you go for the head and you're not the best shot, you might only get a few hits on the head and miss that bonus damage. All in all, it seems that Ying might be a little overpowered in the healing department, just being so much better than Grok at the moment. Whether or not I need to play more games to see if that's truly the case, I'm not entirely sure. And maybe it's just that people aren't used to fighting Ying yet and aren't taking out the illusions as much as possible, which is very important actually to destroy the illusions. I'm not entirely sure, so maybe we'll just have to wait a few days and see how it all plays out, but my first impressions are that she may be a little too much of a master healer. The game has also changed in other ways. There's the new game mode, Payload, where basically one team pushes it as far as they can. They either get it 100% of the way or a percentage along the line from their base to the enemy base. And basically the enemy team either has to get 100 if the enemy team gets 100 or beat the score of the enemy. And honestly, I think this is quite a good twist on the payload mechanic, and it can get very heated when you are extremely close to that ghost of the enemy team's payload. They changed Androxus revolver damage to be reduced from 650 to 620, and they can't drift while stunned. On the gun, it means that you won't be able to take squishy heroes out quite as easily unless you get the card for the extra damage. Bomb King's ultimate isn't so much a one-hit kill-a-thon. Now its damage has been reduced to 2,500, but stuns for 2 seconds instead of knocking them back, which means that once they're stunned for these 2 seconds, you can start throwing your sticky bombs on them and try to take them out. And this way you might have a little bit more skill to get the kills. I actually think in Paladins compared to Overwatch, the ultimates aren't quite as powerful, and this is back in line with all the other ultimates in the game. Eevee's had quite a big nerf by not being able to blink once you've used Ice Block, or if you're crippled, so a lot of people have complained that this is too much of a big deal for her, and to be honest, beforehand, she wasn't some sort of mega character that was overpowered. Her actual fire is very slow moving, and you really have to take people by surprise, and to do that with her, it takes quite a bit of skill, and also in higher level games that's quite hard to do when people are a bit more aware, so yeah, I think they've gone a bit too far with Eevee. They've given extra health to all of the tanky heroes apart from Fernando, who was performing a little too well before, which will hopefully balance things out a bit. And finally they added quite a few skins to the game, including some for Barak, Drogoz, Eevee, Fernando, Grok, Kinessa have all gotten 3 skins. I think Eevee's is probably the nicest, where she's wearing Punk Rocker's outfit and has a guitar, and you can buy them separately if you want. Anyway, is anyone else playing Paladins at the moment, and what do people think about Ying back in the game? Is she a little too powerful at the moment, or are you actually finding the opposite and finding her hard to use? Personally, I think she's improved a lot what she was from the alpha, and I actually have an old video about that, and she definitely was overpowered at that point, just being able to put out so much damage. And almost every match I was the highest damage dealer just because of my illusions being able to literally hammer everybody, even when they just come out of their spawn or something like that. And it sort of took away from Barak, the turret guy. Anyway, whilst this is uploading, I'll be playing some PlanetSide 2 and doing my player spotlight on the Emerald server for the VS. And this time I'm going to try something different. I'm going to do it after the fact rather than doing it live, and see what people think of it compared to my other one. If you thought this video mustered some grand illusions, be sure to give it a like. And if you thought it was a conjurer of cheap tricks, give it a dislike. If you like my content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And thank you all very much for watching. Until next time everyone, Joshino.
Victory.